See if you can remember the name of Batman's now famous comic book creator.
Night has fallen.
When the dastardly doers of crime creep out of the shadows to terrorize the city, there's only one thing to do.
Whoever that unknown Batman is, I hope he sees the signal.
Rest easy, citizens. He's on his way.
There's only one man who can handle this. I don't have to tell you who.
Get ready, Gotham City. It's TV's classic Batman.
Batman was the brainchild of comic book genius Bob Kane.
Now, why didn't I think of that?
As you recall, we left Batman and Robin staked out by shame in the path of a cattle stampede. Things haven't improved any since we left them. And in a moment, we'll see what happens.
Welcome back, citizens, to an all-new episode of the Batcave Podcast. It's your old bat chum, John S. Drew here, and we're heading out to the old Wild West. Well, not really the old Wild West, not even really the Wild West. It's the West out in California, subbing for Gotham City, but there's Western-type stuff in it. We're going to be dealing with that ornery varmint, Shane. There you go. And joining me to discuss Shame, we bring back the wonderful Mr. Jay Smith, HG World, the Googies. Jay, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, John. How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to this one. As a kid, Shame was one of my favorites, and I didn't realize it until recently how much of a connection I have with this particular episode. My father's favorite movie that he told me actually on his deathbed was Shane. And
well, yeah.
You know,
it's definitely one of the westerns I remember as a kid.
See, I and I watched westerns with my dad, and he never watched that movie with me. I don't ever remember him ever getting excited about it, but you know, the day before he passed away, he told me how on the night of his mother's, you know, the day before, because in Ireland they have this tradition that apparently you're not supposed to do anything fun for a year after someone passes that's close to you. You're supposed to spend that time in mourning and contemplation. I'd never heard this before either. And he said the day before the year anniversary, he snuck out of his house to go see Shane. And his father, you know, whooped him crazy, like, you know, after he got back in it. But he said it was worth it because it was a great movie. It was his favorite movie of all time. And to this day, now, my brother and I, the day before the anniversary of my father's passing, we get together and we watch Shane.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try not to hate this episode this time. With that as your benchmark, yeah.
I know, I'm like setting this up. No, I enjoyed it. As a kid, I loved it, but as an adult, I see there's, and I get the feeling I actually think I'm going to like the third season Batgirl episode better than this one. I don't know why, but we'll see.
When I signed on to do this particular episode, I had these on my DVR, and then they were accidentally deleted, but I saw Shame was coming back through the roster, and I recorded it, and I ended up watching the second pair of Shame episodes in the third season. And you're right, I got to see all four of these episodes before we had this conversation, and all four episodes are pretty well written for the time, especially for an episode that brings in a celebrity with an original villain, that the show was written around a guest star and a new villain, because sometimes those things go south real quick, as we talked about my last appearance.
Yes, with Ma Parker. And as we talked about last 2 weeks ago with Robert Long, when it came to Marcia, Queen of Diamonds, that didn't just go south, it just completely went under the earth.
And that's a big problem with the Batman episodes is how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it working within the formula that they established in the first season that really worked? And as the last time we talked with Ma Parker, it was, you get a guest star in who really doesn't have the talent or the ability to do that kind of comedy, and then what you get is somebody who seems like a prima donna who just struts around the set doing slapsticky stuff, and it just doesn't work. Here, it works.
It does for the most part. Let's get into this episode. It's called, well, the two parts, Come Back Shame, It's How You Play the Game. It aired on November 30th and December 1st of 1966. So we're getting, well into the mid-season part here of the second season. Starting out the episode itself, it's the Gotham City 100. Didn't know Gotham City allowed race car driving, but I guess when you consider you've got Batman tearing through the town as well in the Batmobile, it's all right. And we find out that Grimaldi Smith has raced his way through stock footage that holds up very well in the Blu-ray transfers. I was impressed that they one of the things that people were concerned about was that the stock footage always looked bad on the TV show when you compare it to the actual episodes themselves, but they did a great job transferring the stock footage of all of it, whether it's the library or downtown Gotham and Times Square. It actually blends in nicely with the rest of the episodes.
That's good to know. Well, it's stock footage, but
well, it's stock. No, absolutely, it's stock footage, but it just really looked stocky. Even when you watch it on TV, it just really stood out because it was older film. They cleaned it all up. They didn't have to go to all that trouble, but they did for, stock footage so that it looked more natural with the episode. And that's something I appreciated that they did. So he pulls into the pit stop, is held up by Shame, who takes the car. Shame leaves behind his signature platinum bullet. And we also learned that he's stolen 2 other cars, so Batman has to be called in. Something I never realized in also the Blu-ray sort of brings out is just how colorful a character, as far as his costume, Shame is, with the purple shirt and all.
Yeah, it's interesting how he married the two concepts of the Shame costume from the film and then just, camped it up with a little bit of color and flair. And I understand Cliff Robertson picked his costume for this episode.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that. I know he was very, very keen on being on the show.
Yeah, it's interesting because Cliff Robertson is known for more serious roles, and he's a really great actor. One of the things that makes this episode successful is his ability to do comedy. It's just that his ability to turn a phrase. Stanley's script here comes up with some wonderful, obscure Western phrases that Robertson delivers very, very well. But he also, the physical comedy and his interaction with his flunkies, it's up there with the top Batman villains. So it was wonderful to watch him walk through these 2 episodes like he owned the show.
And it occurred to me also in watching this that Cliff Robertson has the distinction of appearing in 2 major, comic book franchises with Batman and then with as Ben Parker in the Spider-Man movies.
And he does a good Uncle Ben in the original Spider-Man series.
Yes. And we get this time around a nice little opening with Dick and Bruce. They're playing slot cars.
Oh, Bruce, that's wonderful. So exciting.
The trick is to make the cars go just slow enough so they don't fall off the track on the curves. It's child's play once you get the hang of it.
I guess I still haven't gotten it, Bruce. That's 3 in a row you've beaten me.
Makes no difference if you win or lose. It's how you play the game.
It's easier to say that when you win.
Sir?
Yes, Alfred.
You have an appointment with a Mr. Red Amici, sir.
Isn't that the man from the phone company?
No, one and the same, Master Dick.
Golly.
We can't keep him waiting, can we?
No, sir.
Why don't you try that, Harriet?
Oh, yeah, that brought back memories.
It did.
But hey, before we move on to that, did you recognize who the race car driver was?
No.
Whenever Batman lingers, like they do a close-up shot of somebody's face and I don't know who it is, I know it's somebody who is or was important. So I looked it up. It was Roy Gleason. He's actually an outfielder for the LA Dodgers at the time. So they cast a ball player as a race car driver in this episode.
So they really, because I know that like a lot of people wanted to be on the show and such, but it had a reach, so to speak, beyond even just Hollywood actor types.
Yeah, somebody who knew the producers ended up getting a cameo, and it's almost the level of being in the Bat Climb cameos. But every so often you'll see the camera will do a slow zoom on somebody, and you're like, yeah, that he must have been somebody important. You get like shopkeepers or somebody who has 1 or 2 lines and they linger on them before the end of the scene.
Right.
Yeah, my cultural literacy from that period is very limited. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, certain ones stand out. I've said it before. Like Jack Barry was in an episode where he was a TV newscaster, and it was just before his return to game shows after the game show scandals of the 50s with 21 and such. But I also knew him more so from the Joker's Wild as the host of that show. But yeah, there's a lot of them that, and you've mentioned that before. Your first episode, the couple, still haven't figured that one out. The couple in the train, in the Two-Face episode.
Yeah, I didn't look that up afterwards either, but there has to be somebody. I was wondering, how thick must Aunt Harriet be, because she couldn't master the slot cars. She tried to remember the one rule they gave her to try and master and she was going to play them by herself, which I thought was interesting. I could picture Aunt Harriet and Alfred spending the entire afternoon competing against each other, and having Alfred just getting more and more frustrated. No. Release it, and they slow down. Squeeze it, and they go faster. And having her just flummoxed and such. That would be its own episode. That would have been better than the Ma Parker episode. Just watching Aunt Harriet and Alfred doing slot cars for half an hour.
Well,
that would have been awesome.
It keeps her occupied, so she's not looking at the time and thinking, boy, they should have been back by now. I mean, that actually is, in some ways, is good. It's almost like keeping a child, occupied.
All you need to do is have the bat shiny object on hand and just flash it at Aunt Harriet, and she'd be fine. Aunt Harriet, this is an alien. Look at the alien. And you say it's an alien, it looks shiny. Yes, and they come back a week later, and she'd be all, I'm still looking for the alien.
Isn't that wonderful?
She was great.
Oh, she was. I love her. I always felt that, whenever she was on, like the Zelda the Great episode or the Liberace episode, they gave her, whenever they gave her a part, it was a substantial one. But then there were other times where it was like, here's the slot car, Aunt Harriet, go to work.
She played the clueless elder generation well.
Yes.
And she was. My brothers and sisters used to watch the show when it was on the air, and she represented the old generation to Bruce and Dick's new generation, the hipsters, the mod, and the hippies, and all that stuff. So it was great. They really cast this show well for their ensemble.
They did. She was one of those actresses that if you ever actually see her in other roles, I've seen her on Bewitched and Andy Griffith and such. Her characters are all pretty one note, and because of it, she really never puts any real emphasis into it. She just sort of says the lines and moves on. But here, because she's part of the cast and there was something more to her, and I loved her. I did. I appreciated what she contributed to the show. Now, did you notice also, talking about the show starting to wear a little thin and things starting to be given up on there, that when Bruce and Dick head to the bat poles, Dick still slides down the bat poles. Bruce kind of shimmies.
I didn't notice that.
He's not gliding down it like the heroic figure anymore. He's sort of going hand over hand. And I did notice that in the later third season. He was doing that a lot more.
I mean, how many times can you do that gag and keep it fresh?
Well, apparently Burt Ward can. See, and that's the one thing I will say throughout this whole thing, as we see everything start to fall apart, the one person who remains constant in all this, God love him, is Burt Ward. His enthusiasm, his whole golly gee, he never falters. Even when Adam West really hams it up in front of the cameras, he just stays true to his character, Well,
that's Burt Ward's strength. I mean, he wasn't such a great actor.
Right.
But he was perfect for Robin, because Robin was all golly gee and energy and bouncing around and not, very poorly contained energy and discipline that Batman and Bruce Wayne had to correct all the time. So, his idea of running across a room and jumping on a pole, that to him is his method. How do I convey a scene through physicality? Whereas Adam West is more eye contact and subtle gestures and inflection of voice. I could see Adam West getting really bored with the whole, how do I do this? But I just watched the scene you mentioned, and it does look like he's doing a pole dance rather than a slide down to the Batcave.
I just recently got a hold of the Legends of the Superheroes. Those two, from the 70s. And even even there, I only watched a few moments because I am planning on reviewing them here for the podcast at some point after we get the episodes done and such. But even there, I'm looking and God love him. There's Burt Ward still, we're talking 10 years later. He's in his late 20s, early 30s, and he's still doing the fist pounding, and he's still just straightforward. Where, of course, and at this point, I forgive Adam West for it. The smirk and the whole, I forgive him because at this point, we're talking about Legends of the Superheroes here. We're not talking about even Batman 66.
Well, yeah, I watched that a long time ago. I got the DVD from Warner Home Video.
Right.
I just noticed the things like his cowl being outside the cape, and this being at a time where Adam West was just fed up with the role. I can imagine him coming back into this with the cape and cowl and just being, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
You could tell there's just kind of a, almost, I don't know, kind of a reunion feel to it where he would rather be doing something else and getting paid than it's, acting off as straight man to ghetto man in that episode.
Yes.
there was some really Ma Parker type stuff going on in that series, that show.
Oh yeah, no, definitely were.
The episode part, the other half, where they go in search of, outside of the roast,
right?
The mystery adventure, that was classic Batman for me.
See, I didn't even get that far.
Really?
I kind of stopped. Like I said, I just sort of was just flipping through. I said, I wanted to see the picture quality. I wanted to see just how bad it was as I remembered it and such. And I wanted to see the opening because I remember the opening, and I always remembered looking at when they would introduce Batman and Robin. Batman, it was clearly Adam West, but whoever the hell that was standing there, that was not Burt Ward with that shock of hair that he had. I mean, I knew it wasn't Burt Ward doing the flips. I figured that much. But then he's standing there, and I'm like going, that's not Burt Ward.
Yeah. There were a lot of things about that show that, you just sit back and go, okay, I know this is going to be a train wreck. Let's just see how bad it's going to be.
Exactly.
But we did
even
get
as
to see
a 10-year-old.
Yeah. And that's how it's like Shame. When you watch these two episodes, I call back to the original episode, where you have to suspend your expectation. You have to look at it like a 10-year-old for it to work. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some of the Batman episodes you can look at as a 40-year-old man and think, that's funny. I didn't get that before. This one, not so much. But if you look at it like in a Sid and Marty Krofft kind of way, you go back to those old TV shows, you think, okay, well, this is pretty funny from a certain point of view.
Well, getting back to our review here of this, Batman and Robin find out the cars are found. One item has been taken from each of them. And the only clue they have is the bullet that Shame left behind. So the two of them take that. They race back to the Batcave. We cut to Shame's hideout. And, once again, the Warner Brothers backlot there or whatever, it's perfect. It's convenient for this episode as he's hiding out in Western Land.
Yeah. They have a Western Land in Gotham City, too.
They've got a Western Land in Gotham City,
Is that where Ma Parker hung out? Or was that a different place?
It was a different
It was her homestead.
It was a different place, but it probably was around that area there that, in terms of outdoor scenery and such. Now, I do have to admit, I like this idea of Shame wanting to make a vehicle faster than the Batmobile so he won't get caught.
Makes sense as much as anything else in this episode, sure, yeah. Well, every episode had to have a hook or some sort of gimmick, and there was no importance. I mean, you look at the Batman movie, and the whole thing was to create a very impractical device to do something even less practical to achieve some weird nebulous end. And it just didn't matter.
Right.
So, making a fast race car that is immediately, recognizable on the street and to carry around three henchmen and in very recognizable outfits, maybe a little bit impractical, but still pretty cool.
What I never thought of as a kid, and actually even growing up as an adult, and I guess it's 2014 me now that's so pessimistic, is I never once thought there was anything wrong with a little boy wandering around an abandoned, amusement park area there, like this kid is as he wanders in on Shame and such.
Did he mentioned something about his mom being nearby, didn't he?
He might have, but I'm thinking even what's mom taking him nearby to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks more like Westworld from the movie than anything else. But he's got this, Chief Crashing Boar is I guess the name of the bar he's in.
Yes.
Well, they just hung it outside on the wooden Indian instead of, it being an actual legitimate sign on the saloon itself, which I thought was an interesting creative choice. But yeah, it was interesting when the kid called for his mom at the end of the first segment. I'm like, what mom takes his kid to an abandoned amusement park during the day?
Right. Well, it's like a few weeks ago when we did the review of Mr. Freeze, and we realized at the end, myself and Dan Greenfield were like, just how creepy it is. First of all, how a little kid, because it was this little kid who had been booing Batman out on the street earlier in the episode because Mr. Freeze was trying to discredit Batman. And of course, he saves the day and manages to save his reputation and everything. At the end of the episode, Batman and Robin come out of Gordon's office, and there's that kid waiting for them to tell him how great he is, and he goes, come on, let's take a ride in the elevator. And I'm like going, you're getting in an elevator with two costume men, you managed to get down to the 13th floor of the police headquarters without anybody spotting you.
It was a different time.
It was a very different time.
But you figure if you're living in a city where you have duly deputized men in masks who help you fight crime, and in this case, help you find very simple crimes like missing cars, your standards are a little bit different than yours and mine, I think.
That's true. I mean, in the end, when you do think about it, this is just a car theft ring.
It is, yeah. I mean, this is, if you look at it from a certain perspective, a lot of these episodes can be very troubled stalkers trying to profess their love for Batman in a very unorthodox way. And Shame, the way that he interacts with Batman, he has something to prove. It's almost like the old trope about the young gunslinger coming after the old gunslinger. But there's this little twist to it where Shame wants to be the hero, but he knows he can't. And at some point he needs Batman's validation, I guess. But it's a very subtle theme throughout a lot of these episodes where the villain wants Batman to acknowledge that they are something more than they are.
See, now that's like I agree with you entirely. I didn't think about it that much with Shame. I was just looking at him as the spoiled kid playing, cowboy and such. But that does make, I mean, especially since he's taking on the name Shame, after Shane. Which again, I mean, they don't get into it in terms of the movie and such, but you do see the subtle hints to the movie, including the kid, wandering after him when Shame and his men go off, and he's following after him, going, "Come back, Shame." That's the very end of the movie, Shane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
and particularly when we get to the end, when the kid shows up in Commissioner Gordon's office and he decides to turn in his cowboy costume for a bat costume.
Yes.
The look of defeat on Shame's face, that was the end of his journey.
Yes.
I lost the blonde-haired kid. I really screwed my life up. I'm going to jail, but hell, I lost the kid's trust or whatever.
It did mean something to him, that trust.
Mm-hmm.
It really did, in a way. I mean, he wasn't just... I mean, yeah, he uses the kid, to get the radio and such. But there is something about it that he did appreciate the kid's trust in him,
or his adoration, or having somebody look up to him as maybe in the Batman gallery sort of, you respect me as a villain kind of thing,
right?
Like you've made it as a villain because all these kids are looking at you like, wow, if I'm going to grow up to be a villain, I want to be a villain like you.
Yeah. Now you're giving me some new thoughts about this episode, and maybe even some missed potential here then with that whole interaction there between the two of them.
When you look at the episodes that follow and on the Batman Catwoman relationship, if you put that filter on, you see the same kind of things. Maybe not with Joker, but even Joker, especially toward the third season, is trying to make a mark for himself. He's not the madcap anarchist that you see after this series, but he's more of a, I'm going to be the top, or I'm going to have all, and he's trying to establish status.
Right.
That makes him more popular or better than Batman. He's not trying to kill Batman, or he's not trying to destroy things. He wants to... They all seem to want to earn Batman's trust and respect in some way, or adoration in some twisted sort of way. But,
in a twisted way, yeah.
Yeah.
the bullet back at the Batcave, the bullet is found to just be an ordinary bullet painted platinum, which is in typical Shame fashion in a way. It's just sort of cheaping out there.
There is a shot that I didn't notice until I reviewed the episode the other day of Batman holding the bullet with, I guess, a clamp or a forceps and biting it, where it looks like he's holding a marijuana cigarette. And he has this expression on his face. I'm thinking, that has to be a GIF somewhere online. There has to be, like, somebody who added smoke trails off the end of that, because that's too perfect to not be intentional.
Well, if there's not, they might be soon.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what time code of that is, but yeah, it's just... There are other ways you could have analyzed it. I mean, they just could have had an index card pop out and say it's not real platinum, but no, he had to hold it up to his mouth like that. So I'm curious. Anyway, weird things distract me from these episodes.
Let's try another tack. Shame has stolen a carburetor, pistons, and milled heads. Now, what does that suggest to you, Robin?
That he's building an engine. But why go to all this trouble when it's less dangerous to buy one?
Why indeed, Robin. However, these are not ordinary automotive components. They're highly sophisticated, not readily available at your local garage. No, there's a method to his misdemeanors.
I've got it. He probably wants to enter a car in the Gotham City Grand Prix next month for the $100,000 prize.
Good thinking, old chum. Now, if you were building a super engine, what else would you need?
A special camshaft and valve lifters.
Precisely.
But they're able to figure out, though, based on the parts that are missing, that Shame wants to build an engine. He needs some more parts. So, as Bruce, Batman calls Hot Rod Harry to make an announcement on the radio show, because he's this guy who knows all about cars. And, he's going to use his own limousine as bait for Shame. And once again, we get to see Bat Siri.
Really? Are you talking about for the motorcycle or
no,
in the car itself?
No, when he tells the phone, dial this number.
Yes.
He has the Bat computer do it for him.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's come a long way from chastising Robin when Robin just wanted to use a phone book one time in the first season to find a number. Now he's just, dial Hot Rod Harry at this number.
The moment leading up to that scene I thought was interesting, in that wonderful dynamic where Bruce and Dick are sent to get Aunt Harriet's underwear.
That's actually just after it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Gosh, Bruce, I've never been in a place like this before.
Maybe we should have checked Aunt Harriet's shopping list more closely before we volunteered.
What do you think we should do?
Press on. Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Bonjour, messieurs. May I help you?
Yes, we're looking for something in, something in lingerie.
I see. Exactly what sort of lingerie?
Well, it's, I think one would say, how would you say it, Dick?
It's like it's...
He wants a full slip, size 38, white and washable.
Oh, merci, madame.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Miss...
Okay, Annie.
Miss Annie?
Aren't you millionaire Bruce Wayne? And aren't you his youthful ward, Dick Grayson?
How'd you know?
Well, I've seen your picture in the paper a whole passel of times. And I could use your help.
Turnabout's fair play. What do you need?
Well, see, my car's down in the parking lot, just plumb tuckered out, and I'm down to my last chip.
Mm-hmm. Merci, mademoiselle.
Oh, merci, monsieur.
Do you need some money?
No, just a lift over to Point View Street. I mean, I couldn't ask just anyone, but I reckon on account of you're so trustworthy because of all those nice things I read in the paper about what your foundation does.
I think we could arrange that, can't we, Dick?
We sure can.
I could just kiss you for that. Oh, here, hold this. Come on, let's go.
Because they pick up Okiani and drive her to the point where they get stopped by the cow.
Right.
And that's where the car's stolen.
Right. But the whole thing of just the idea of... There had to have been a better way to have the two of them meet with Annie than the embarrassing thing of putting, Bruce and Dick on the spot of shopping for, unmentionables for Aunt Harriet.
That's one of the cool things about those characters because, and I amend what I said earlier. Bruce and Dick are not the progressive. Bruce and Dick are the conservative 50s ideal or early 60s to Batman and Robin's, more progressive pair. So to have them go back and forth and just be physically unable to use the words to describe women's underwear, it's part of that great cultural subtext of this series. And then have a woman come in pajamas.
Basically, that's what she's wearing.
And a cowboy hat and a gun belt. She's got 2 guns on her, and right. Bruce and Dick don't take any notice of it at all. And meanwhile, Shame is hiding behind 2 half-naked mannequins, and none of that registers to anybody. It's just everybody carries out the scene as though it were written with no set or no costumes. It's great.
And like you said, they offer her a ride because her car's broken down. She needs a ride to her car and such. And we get some great outdoor footage again with the cow blocking the way. It's a perfect opportunity to be ambushed by Shame and such and have the limo stolen. Although, once again, isn't it convenient that along comes Alfred? He's got his Alf cycle hidden nearby.
Oh, it was hidden in the motorcycle.
Was it hidden in the motorcycle?
Oh, yeah, when the motorcycle showed up, he pulled it out.
Okay.
Yeah. It was very convenient that he had thought to put the Alf cycle on. And it was very convenient that he has a remote control device that allows a riderless motorcycle to follow them without anyone in Gotham City noticing it.
Yeah, I was fine with the remote control. You're right, though, about the Alf cycle. And once again, it's like Alfred, because this happened a few weeks ago, too. Alfred's taking a lot of initiative. He actually created the Alf cycle in the Joker episode, and he's showing Batman and such. And I would be thinking, because he's like, I've got my radio, and I've tuned it into the Batmobile, so I've tinkered with and I would be like Batman going, you touch my Batmobile? Who told you could touch my Bat? No, but there's Batman just with this smirk like, you cute old man, you.
Adam West definitely had his Shatner moments where
yes.
Someone would try to upstage him and he would have to mug his way out of a scene. Yeah.
Although I also did like, this is a rare moment of seeing the two in civvies in a bat-related object.
Yeah, that was weird. And I think Dick mentions, well, what if we're seen? And they conveniently put the spot like a mile from the Batcave.
Yes. Yeah.
So wherever she needed to go, wherever they needed to go, was 12 miles outside of Gotham City in the exact direction of the Batcave. So I love the Sid and Marty Krofft vibe of this episode. It's great.
Well, Batman and Robin follow them back to the hideout since they've got a tracer on the limousine and such.
The best laid plans of mice and men oft gang agley.
Who's that? You'd better come quietly, Shame.
Let's drill him, boss.
Holster your hardware, fellas. Wouldn't want no stray bullets in this here truck after all this work. And all that money facing us.
We ain't got a chance against the dynamic duo. Leastwise not without guns.
Talking to you is like talking pig Latin to a donkey. We got 'em outnumbered. 3.5 to 2. Now let's hang up their hides.
Bat fight breaks out, and once again, we've got different bat fight music, but this time I'm okay with it because it was spaghetti western style music.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually very cool to hear as they were doing the fighting. They're brought down by a chandelier from Opie Annie.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of Western tropes. And I love 50s and 60s television Westerns just for the threadbare look that they have. And if you watch them, you can pick out what set pieces were used in what episodes. I mean, the recycling on these shows is amazing. You can almost pick out the things that are hanging. You can tell what's not going to get broken and what's going to get broken because you'll learn to see it in all these different episodes. The things behind the bar that are just going to be that they're just stage glass or whatever, but they're little things on the one side that somehow just avoid getting cracked apart.
Right.
There's a lot of really cool details that if you've spent your 44 years watching a lot of television, it tends to all kind of accumulate.
Now, my problem though with what happens next, because they're bat trapped, they're tied to the ground, staked to the ground, and a stampede of cattle is sent bearing down on the two of them.
Hasta la vista, partners. I'll tell everybody you died with your bad boots on.
And Robin at last bitten the dust? Is this the big casino? Are the dynamic duo heading for the last roundup? If you have the intestinal fortitude to learn the answer to these questions, tune in tomorrow. Shame time, Shame Channel.
And I'm like thinking the amount of cattle that's there, if Shame were just to turn around and sell it, he probably could have bought all the parts he needed for a car faster than the Batmobile. Then going through this whole I'm like, you have cattle?
Wow, yeah. And I'm sure people out in California who saw this episode said the same thing. Wow, yeah. And we've seen Batman and Robin put in more dire predicaments than being staked to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
With their utility belts.
With their utility belts, although didn't need it because nature took its course with all the rumbling. You know, Batman was able to get himself free.
Yeah, so as far as cliffhangers go, this is not exactly the most daring. But it is in line with a lot of Western tropes, so I will give them that. They were trying to do everything that was done in an old Western and turn it around, so no points deducted for that attempt.
No. And also, you know, Batman teaches us something once again, that it's not the color red that the bull is distracted by, you know, when the Matador is doing it. So, because Robin was like, you know, how come they went for your cape? And he was like, it's just movement or whatever. I forget what exactly he said to that effect.
Yeah.
But did you notice also on the back of Batman's costume when he took off the cape, did you see those two dots?
Yes, the buttons to keep his cape down.
Is that what that is? Okay, I couldn't figure that out.
Well, either that's where they refill his camp. I don't know. But yeah, that's what I pictured. And when Robin stood up, the cape definitely didn't fly up the way it, you know, the full length. So that's what I figured.
Right. Okay. And I don't recall. This is the first time Batman and the Kid have met, and now the Kid, you know, we've never known the Kid's name before that. He was calling himself the Payco Kid. Batman refers to him as Andy.
And that was the name of Stanley Ralph Ross's son. Right.
But there was nothing there that ever, like, he was introduced before to Batman. It's like, how did Batman know Andy's name?
But is he really the same kid from the previous episode, or just the same actor playing a different role?
That's the kid, the kid that's enamored with Shame.
Right. But I mean, when was it the same kid who was? Well, I'm thinking he did appear in another episode with another villain, right?
Oh, this particular kid? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just saying it's our kid who the Payco Kid who, you know, like I said, he's the one who gives Shame the radio and all. Then he comes wandering out after Batman and Robin are free. And Batman refers to him as Andy. And I'm like, how do you know?
Oh, yeah.
How do you know his name?
I was thinking that it was implied that it was a character from a previous episode that they were already acquainted, but you're right. There's no
I see
connection.
What you're saying. Yeah, no, because he's not the same kid from, because the only other one, I mean, it was another blonde toe-headed kid, was the Mr. Freeze episode a few weeks previous. But they look alike, but I doubt they're the same kid.
If that's the one thing that hangs us up on this episode, it's all good. And I guess maybe it's the Blu-ray, but I look back at how they were staked to the ground, and those ropes weren't really even attached to the pegs, were they?
No, they weren't.
You can see that pretty clear.
Yeah. No, absolutely. They were not very well secured.
But it was interesting how they wove the Andy's hero's journey into these two episodes. how he shows up in his cowboy outfit, and you know how he questions Shame about what he did to Batman and Robin, and then he turns to the dark side, and slightly, and he kind of accepts that this is what Shame is doing, and that's kind of cool. And then he does that whole White Knight turnaround toward the end. I thought was pretty cool.
Yep. And now we get a little bit of padding in the episode, you know, in a sense, because we're doing like the connect the dots. Well, we got to find out why, because they know Shame's building this thing, but they don't know why. So they go to Hot Rod Harry to see if he can give them any ideas, and then he's like, "Why don't you go talk to Laughing Larry?" Some more alliteration, the used car salesman, and Larry. You know, and once again, one of the classic jokes: just sold a car to a little old lady from Pasadena.
Yeah.
But he's useless to Batman and Robin, too, in terms of information. And the reason for that is because he's in cahoots, we find out, with Shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a used car salesman, of course.
Yeah.
He's got to have some sort of nefarious plot underneath everything else.
Politicians, lawyers, used car salesmen.
Yeah. I love the fact that they just hit the nail on the head with it and had him laugh at the end of every line.
Yes.
That was... It was something that probably sounded great in the writer's room or in the table read, but not quite in the execution. It just made him seem almost supernaturally evil, like there was a possessive force behind those eyes, which, you know, it's a used car salesman. So
Now, I mentioned before about the cattle, and I said, he's got all this cattle. You know, I don't know a lot about the price of beef. I don't know anything about the price of beef, but I'm just thinking to myself, you had that much cattle. But now we learned that Shame's plan is just to steal 4 Black Angus cattle from the Gotham City Rodeo. And he'll make over $1 million. Now, and I can tell you, I know this much from my days at Charlie Brown's Steakhouse, that Angus beef is, you know, to die for. It is delicious and a lot pricier and such. But, you know, 4 cattle getting him over $1 million, then what was that whole stampede, the whole herd he had? What was that worth?
Yeah, they all had brucellosis or something. They're all out. He probably just got them from a used cattle dealer and brought them in, like pennies on the head or something.
Mm-hmm.
They've all got some sort of, you know, mad cow disease.
Yeah, yeah. And we get a little twist here, because we never saw this one coming. And I liken it to when, you know, Roddy McDowall played the Bookworm. You know, he's in this great mood, he's got his plan, everything's going, and then he hears that Batman escapes.
Oh, hello there, Laughing Leo. You come over to give us more good news? Well, this truck's ready to take on anything. Of course, it don't make a heap of difference now that Batman and Robin took the big leap.
Well, you should mention that.
Yeah.
We're gonna steal them there, Black Anguses?
What were Black Anguses?
All them prize cows at the Gotham City Rodeo worth $300,000 each.
And 4 of them totals up to $1,200,000 altogether.
Which we're gonna sell out west to some unscrupulous cattle ranchers.
Oh, boy, don't that just about fry your eyeballs? I couldn't be happier. I ain't smiled so much since I ran out of notch room on my gun handle. Batman and Robin done in. Us gonna get a pot full. Things just couldn't be better. All right, Leo, what'd you come to talk to me about?
Well, I don't quite know how to tell you this, but...
When I don't stand there chewing your cud. Spit it out, boy. I don't like a dallying tongue.
Batman and Robin are still alive. They came over to my place asking questions. What's happened?
He's angrier than a hyena with laryngitis.
Shame!
Hush up, Leo. When he gets this way, maybe he don't say nothing, but it ain't safe to ask no question.
And Shame goes on a rampage.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Well, it's interesting because it shows that, you know, Cliff Robertson can show some range.
Oh, sure.
And I love how the lighting changed and the angles got a little bit more twisted, and the focus was on his face. Do you remember Darkman, the movie?
Oh, yeah.
When Peyton Westlake started to get angry, Sam Raimi would do those close zooms and the tilted angles and the weird light behind. And I think, you know, that was inspired by this kind of thing, where there's longer shadows in this scene, and he starts shooting stuff. And It's very, very cool. And Cliff Robertson does an excellent job. He mugs a little bit. I can see he does that whole frowny face thing, but it's a really interesting scene.
It's interesting, but we're into the second episode. We're a good quarter of the way in. He's never shown any inclination. At least when Bookworm did it. He did it right off the bat early on in his first episode. And, we were told he was a frustrated writer. I could see. I've probably done it myself sometimes with some of my writing, getting so twisted up. This just came out of nowhere that he suddenly had this tantrum. The only thing I could attribute it to, like I said earlier on, is that he's like a big kid. And it's like when he doesn't get his way, he's throwing his tantrum.
Well, that very well could be. It seemed like, and like you said, there was a lot of filler on this half of it. I've read that Cliff Robertson had a lot of input. He was very interested in playing this role, and he wanted some significant character development. So in the mechanical process of television writing, I'm sure that was kind of a deliverable. So maybe that was a moment that he requested. It wasn't worked in as well as it could have. But, all these villains have, if what they want isn't necessarily what they're actually after, as we discussed. So him going after the Black Angus cattle isn't necessarily the real thing. It's beating Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So that moment where he was very proud of his grand plan to stake them to the ground and have them run over by cattle. I mean, that was a great thought out plan. You could see the pride in his face. So to be defeated on that, I can see that would be the moment that he would show us Shame's dark side, if you will.
Okay.
It was ham-fisted, but it was a kind of a mental twist to see the Batmobile driving up an Old West street.
Yeah.
That was a cool shot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, any of those, like I say, any of those times you've got the Batmobile, you've got the outdoor scenes, and it's not just the stock footage of the Batmobile, especially in the backlots. And there's several, including the Falseface episode you did. It's just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They find the limo. It's turned up. And once again, Alfred has taken the initiative. He dismantled the entire car, saving the two 15 minutes. Did you get that? I love that line. They're like, wow, you saved us 15 whole minutes.
Alfred is very industrious. I see him wandering through the show, just straight man. Like, I realize how absurd this stuff is, but okay.
Oh, I loved Alan Napier. Loved him.
Mm-hmm.
God. They scan it for clues. All they're able to come up with is some chili and avocado on the steering wheel. One of the best. What does that tell you? That Shame's a messy eater? I love that.
Yeah. Napier's role, he reminds me, when your kids are playing when they're really younger and they bring you in as kind of their accomplice,
right?
And you stand there with a straight face and they're doing all this weird abstract street theater crap, and you're just like, wow, that's really creative, but it makes no sense. Yes. That's Alan Napier through this whole series. He's as the patriarch, not acknowledging that he's actually in charge of everything, but he's just kind of letting the kids put on their goofy costumes and goof around. And yes, that's a brilliant deduction, sir. That's wonderful. It's good that you thought that way, Batman. Almost the nanny from Muppet Babies in that context.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, they trace the chili and avocado to the best restaurant in town. They get there. It's empty, though. And again, another bit of filler. Because then Batman from there has to reason that Shame is back at Westernland. So, we're going to head on over there. It's just a lot of bouncing from here to there, place to place, and it's not really doing anything to develop the plot overall. It's clearly time-filling.
That and character development for Shame.
For Shame, okay.
But yeah, you're right. It's not a really tightly packed episode. I understand that there was some concern about how to resolve the cliffhanger in this episode.
Really?
When Ralph Stanley Ross was writing this, I don't know if that caused a problem with the subsequent second episode, but maybe that's a reason. Resolving that cliffhanger and then having the natural progression of the story to the next confrontation. I don't know if they just had to fill it up with general stuff, or if the draft ended up being less of a mystery or clues gathering than it should have. I don't know. But it seemed like they did their clues gathering, then they went to this place, which should have been more significant.
Right.
And that's where they had been hanging out, where he did have that tantrum, and nothing came of it. I'm wondering if they pulled something significant out of that scene that was the cause of that, or a result of, or something involving that temper tantrum. I don't know.
Or to the effect that they're like, oh, we need to get out of here. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they showed up just as they were escaping.
Now, I will say the next scene that follows I do like, because they head to Western Town. Shame is ready for them. He's got them ambushed, and he manages to shoot Robin in the heel.
He shot Burt Ward!
Yeah!
Somebody actually got shot on Batman in the foot!
In the foot.
That is so awesome!
And it's not just a simple matter of, let's head back to the Batcave, and he sits there, Batman, and has him bite down on something, and he removes the bullet right out of a Western.
Yeah, and I'm not really excited about it because, somebody got shot, but that, they actually went there.
Yes.
The show actually, showed there was physical peril here.
Yep.
Which was ambitious for this series. That put Robin in serious jeopardy.
Yep.
Remember the Ma Parker episode? How much lead was shot downrange in that episode and nobody got hit? Mm-hmm. But here, there's actual consequences for firing a weapon.
Well, you had to do something like that because at least in the Ma Parker episode, right off the bat, they get away with the joke. They're all terrible shots anyway. So it's like we can shoot up all the guns we want. No one's really ever going to get hit. Now you've got another gun toter, and he better do something with this gun or else, he's going to be another ineffective villain.
Right. And I think it's a good message because they're showing consequence, not just because the cops in the Ma Parker episode threw a lot of lead downrange too.
Yes.
Nobody hit anybody.
Yeah.
And here you have Shame plugging Robin, which I thought was great.
So,
but his recovery was kind of rapid.
Well, thanks to Batcillin.
Yeah. And I'm sure that fixed all his muscles and, mended his bones too.
He's mended his bones. I mean, you saw him, he's, doing little hops in place there and everything. Back at the Batcave, everything's fine.
Oh, maybe he's a Bat clone, kind of like, Venture Brothers, where, Robin gets shot and he's taken out of commission, so he just pulls, Dick Grayson 2.0 out of the freezer. And,
could you imagine that?
But he's got everything else.
Why not?
Well, this Robin unit's damaged. I'll just have to go to my emergency backup Robin.
It would also explain a lot of times why Batman is so frustrated with Dick because, Dick will say something really dumb. And it's like because he's teaching this one over again and he's getting tired of it.
Yeah, that's true. He's like a puppy. Every episode he comes out, he's jumping up and down and he's really excited and bouncing over the door of the Batmobile. Yeah. Explain why he never grows into his gloves and he has to keep tugging on them. Anyway.
Yes. Oh, yeah, the old tug on the gloves all the time. Just making sure those fingers are in nice and smooth and tight.
I can't act through this scene. I'm going to tug on my costume.
Well, Bruce has to serve as the Grand Marshal for the Gotham City Rodeo. And realizing that the Black Angus cattle will be the target, Bruce sends his regrets because Batman has to be there instead. As we come to the end of another act, and we start with the new one. Shame's already at the rodeo. Batman and Robin are climbing up the wall. I didn't understand this. If it's a rodeo, wouldn't it be sort of an open outdoor thing? I know there was the stables and stuff where the cattle were being kept. I got that scene. But, why are Batman and Robin climbing up a wall?
These short bat climbs are harder than the longer ones.
It takes a while to unlimber your muscles, Robin. It's all good training.
Colonel, what are you doing here in Gotham City?
I am looking for an underground agent.
One of ours or one of yours?
And why the exposition hall at the Coliseum?
Who knows? You never know where you might find one.
Be careful not to get picked up. Chief O'Hara can be very tough with aliens incognito.
Incognito? With my monocle?
Well, say hello to Colonel Hogan for us.
It's a wonder he hasn't tried to borrow your bat robe to pull another one of his escapes.
To meet Colonel Clink.
Colonel Clink.
That's really the only... Yeah, I mean, it's an exhibition hall. It's clearly a warehouse that they're pulling up to.
Right.
But certainly not the parking lot. But it's decorated as though it's the main entrance. But yeah, there's really no point to that scene except to set up the wall climb. I mean, the wall climbs are cool, but yeah, you're right. There's no. I'm sure they could go to the talent entrance or the cattle chute entrance or something.
Yeah. And like you said, Colonel Klink. This is where now the wall cameos are just getting ridiculous.
I guess if I'm not watching in that context, I'm wondering if World War II is still going on in this Batman universe.
Sure.
That if it's Klink, it's not Werner Klemperer. He's definitely incognito, in character,
right?
Making absolutely no sense. I had no idea what this dialogue was going on about, and they were treating Klink like the good guy.
Exactly. He was giving him advice to be careful.
Yes.
About Commissioner Gordon and aliens in the city or something like that.
Yeah. Like, you're okay. Batman's conspiring with Nazis to find fugitive American POWs in Gotham City. What? And he's like, I guess in this parallel universe, he's not the bumbling Colonel Klink. He must be like Hochstetter in the SS, which makes it even that much worse. It was surreal.
It was very surreal. But yeah.
But apparently, what leads us to the rodeo, they come in through the window and they're in the rodeo, I guess, on the 5th floor or something.
I guess. Yeah.
So over Colonel Klink's head is a rodeo going on where a lot of Gotham City is apparently attending.
Right.
But it didn't last too long.
And not only that, because they were climbing the wall, they arrived too late. The cattle had been taken.
Colonel Klink foiled their nefarious plot.
Maybe that's it. He was working with Shame.
Yes, Colonel Klink was working with Shame, so Shame was working with a Nazi Gestapo agent to. Okay, all right. See, this is getting better than the episode.
This is, yes.
I see a fanfic coming out of this.
And who also is at the rodeo? Okay, I guess in a way it makes sense since his obsession with cowboys right now and such. There's Andy.
Yeah, he gets around.
He gets around, that kid. He gets around, and he always seems to get away from his mom.
Oh, he's the alien that Klink's after.
Oh, maybe.
He's not really a kid. He's there to test the morality of Earthlings, particularly Gotham City Earthlings.
Well, he's also blonde-haired and blue-eyed, so...
Yeah. Well, and and the used car dealer is the Satan allegory. Yes. He's the one that whispers to do bad things into Shame's ears. Yes. I definitely, yeah. Once this is over, I'm going to start working on a fan fiction and part of that.
There you go. Robin deduces that they've gone to the corral. Okay, now it's not the Western Town Corral, though, is it? They say the corral, and again, there's been no mention of a corral before.
No, but that's a trope set up there. They have to have the final conflict at the corral, whether it be okay or other.
No, I get that, but usually when it's something like that, there'll be, considering Gotham City is as immense as it is, and it's got a Western town. You mean it's only got one corral?
That's true.
Meanwhile, at the Gotham City stockyards, Shame and his evil cohorts are feeding the Black Angus cattle at the KO Corral.
Well, I guess we done did it, Laughing Leo. As soon as we get these critters fed and watered, we'll hightail it out of here.
Every arch criminal in the East has been trying to outwit Batman for years. But it took a suntan, grin-rizzle Westerner to do the trick.
You said a snoop bowl, Leo.
Hey, boss, did you hear what I hear?
Huh? You hear anything?
You hear anything?
What do you hear?
The Batmobile.
Well, that's what I hear. All right, now take cover. And this time, when you aim to please.
Although I do, and like you said, here's a scene, Batmobile approaching, the music's playing. I like the fact you hear that. And the music's starting to build as the Batmobile's approaching.
There it is, Batman. The KO Corral.
Let's go. Steady, old chum. This could be a trap. What do you think, Robin?
It's awfully quiet.
Too quiet for my money.
It was cute.
Yeah, they were definitely hamming it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was definitely ham, but it was good ham.
Yeah, Cliff Robertson did really well here too.
Don't make a move, Batman, or I'll fill you full of lead.
You can't frighten us with a vague threat, Shame.
For a smart hombre, you ain't got much savvy. This town ain't big enough for the both of us. Draw.
He dialed back the camp, and he did a straight-on television Western gunslinger.
You and every other criminal know that I don't carry firearms, Shame.
Well, then reach for your utility belt so's I can do you in.
Even the rottenest cowboy wouldn't gun down 2 unarmed men. It's against the code of the Old West.
Them rules don't count east of the Mississippi.
If you're gonna murder us, you're gonna have to do it without our aid. You may get 2 other notches in your gun, but it won't help your reputation one bit.
That's enough, Batman. One more move and you look like a big blue lump of Swiss cheese. I got you covered 6 ways to Sunday. Look around.
Which I thought was great. It was a parody, but very, very subtle and well done.
It was. I mean, we get the whole showdown. It's high noon.
At the moment of truth, do exactly as I do.
All right, fellas and gal.
The 2 are covered. Did you notice, by the way, though, in the background of Shame, as he's walking towards them, there was somebody walking in the shot in the background?
What do we do when the smoke clears and they can draw a bead on us?
Shh, I'm concentrating.
You'll pardon the expression, there's a heck of a time to be concentrating.
Let's see. 9 guns with 6 shots each. How many shots is that?
54.
I counted 53. You're out of bullets.
Now we'll see if you guys are as brave without guns for protection.
Come on, Robin.
No.
Yeah, take a look at that. It's very subtle and it's very quick. It's one of the cutaways. As Shane just says a line, and it's like I looked. I'm like, get out of the shot. You're not supposed to be in there.
Well, I saw the used car dealers there, and his henchmen are hiding somewhere.
Right.
But it's right outside of his hideout, so it is Westernland.
Yeah.
I'm watching as this goes. So the corral is the Westernland corral.
Okay, so that's okay.
Yeah, the wooden Indian's behind Robin with the sign hanging over it.
Okay.
So where is this? Yeah, I see him walk in. There's the used car dealer right before the clock strikes 12. Okay. But right after the clock strikes 12, they continue to have their conversations.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on.
A lot of talking. A lot of talk. And yet it gives us one of the best bits because, as Shame approaches, Batman throws down the smoke bomb and the guns start firing and such. And I still remember this as a kid. Batman can count bullets, but he can't tell what 9 times 6 is.
He's a savant. There's some things he's brilliant at, some things no.
Yeah.
Seeing the world as it is, that's not his strength.
Right. And of course we get a bat fight because it's the end of the episode.
Partner, it were a fair and square fight, Batman.
It was fair because you couldn't use your weapons. Great care must be taken in the use of firearms. They can be quite dangerous if used improperly.
You said a mouthful.
Shame, you just fired your last shot in Gotham City.
All right, you thieving spalpeens. Get going. Come on, into the wagon. All right, now, come on, hurry up. Let's go, you two, come on.
Well, Batman, you've done it again. May I shake your glove?
Of course, Commissioner.
And yours too, boy wonder.
I must admit, we had a few tense moments with Shame.
On the other hand, I knew you'd bring him to justice.
Oh?
Well, don't you always? I like to think of you two as my own personal blessings in disguise.
You notice that when Okie Annie has a chance to shoot Batman in the face, she turns the gun backwards to try and hit him with the butt?
Yes.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah. For a woman who packs as much, iron as she does, you'd think she'd be really quick to just shoot him in the face, but no. I guess she's not a card-carrying member of the NRA.
Ooh. Well, but, women tend to be more aggressive. They end up being more physical, and then Batman tends to forgive them more.
Well,
which is an interesting dynamic. I mean, they could shoot him, and he would be, yeah, well, I whatever, sure. she was just programmed wrong, or whatever the code was of the time. And
the poor deluded girl.
Yes, exactly. Under the spell of the nefarious villain.
That's why when you get these ones who, at the end of the episode, they're not at all, showing any remorse, and they're just, he's still looking at them like poor girl and all, but it's like, no, I'm fine. Whether it was Bookworm's mole, off she went with him, or Okie Annie in this case here. She's not making any excuses though to Batman at the end. She's not, looking at him or swooning. She's just as nasty as shame can be.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can admire.
And that was his
more.
wife at the time, wasn't it?
That was
yeah.
his wife. Yeah.
I forget.
Let me hang on. Let me look her up. I think it's Dina Merrill.
Yes.
No. Dina Merrill. No, you know what? Dina Merrill was in the next two-parter. This is she? Yeah. This is Joan Staley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I won't be so quick to agree with you in the future. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Let's talk about shame here for a few moments here. You and I both said that we liked this episode when we were kids and such, and I always liked the character as a kid. Although, now as an adult, I'm not finding this story as impressive. I'm still liking it. I still like the character. I think there's a lot there to go with, and especially what you said about, Shame trying to impress Batman and trying in a way to be the good guy of sorts, but in his own twisted way, he's trying to show he's a good guy and such.
Right.
We've talked about in other episodes with other folks who've been here when we did the King Tut episodes. That character was just way over the top and annoying in many respects, as much as I loved Victor Buono. Here, even though this is also another comedy character of sorts, Cliff Robertson doesn't play him up in an over-the-top way. He has his moments, but not, the way, King Tut with his, calling everybody boobies or whatever. It just, ugh.
Yeah, it would be interesting to talk to Cliff Robertson to see what he was going for in that. Because I think you hit it on the head with the one scene where he starts flipping out. He does really throw a temper tantrum. So as I'm thinking about his approach to this role, it's almost like a kid playing cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's genius to it's almost like mixing up your action figures as a kid. You've got your Western figure playing against Batman and Robin and mixing these two genres together in kind of a weird way, but in a way that's natural for kids.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, if Cliff Robertson had the kind of input that I'm reading he had, that's a great approach to it, because you had kids who were tuning into Batman to watch it for specific, campy, funny stuff. They would find Shame somebody that they could identify with in a certain way, and that would keep their attention. But also there were the layers on top of it that guys like us would look at and think, wow, that's really ridiculous, but it's funny as hell.
Yeah. Did you know that this role, though, was originally being considered, they were considering offering it to Clint Eastwood?
Yeah, I read that. I thought that was really interesting.
Right.
I think they made the right choice, at least for Shame. And I would have preferred him in the Harlan Ellison Two-Face episode that was never produced.
Well, see, that's the thing I'm finding interesting. I'm like thinking they must have been really trying to go out of their way to get Clint Eastwood to appear on the show. It's because Shame and then, Ellison's Two-Face episode they were considering for if they'd gone ahead with that story and such. I wonder what, a Clint Eastwood episode of Batman would have been like.
Yeah, and I know that they produced the Two-Face episode of Batman 66 in comic form.
Right.
I haven't had a chance to read it.
No,
yeah, it's like $10 though.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I saw it at my comic shop, and I guess this is kind of a capsule review, and I really wanted to get it because I love all things Harlan Ellison, and I love Batman, and I've always wanted to see what Harlan Ellison would do with a Two-Face script. But I picked it up, and it's $10, and half of it is filler stuff. Well, maybe not filler stuff, but sketches and article stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, that's great bonus content if I want to see it online, but I don't see spending $10 to see this. I could have browsed the whole half of that book in the comic shop and gotten it. But
No,
but yeah, I thought it was interesting. I love the concept that Batman 66, the comic book, is starting to bring these unproduced episodes out, and that it's honoring the tradition of the old series in terms of writing and its art. I was just kind of disappointed in the price point and the content of that episode or that issue, but I thought it was interesting, and I do think that Clint Eastwood would have been interesting in that role.
I haven't had a chance yet myself. I actually don't buy the physical. I get the online through Comixology, so I'm wondering what their price is for the online version.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be part of the ongoing series, but it's a one shot.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they set like they did when they did their Batman Green Hornet team up as well. They they separated that from the line.
Maybe the price point for Harlan Ellison or Kevin Smith to write those kind of scripts just makes it prohibitive to put it as part of the ongoing series. I don't know.
Have you been picking up any of the ongoing series itself of the regular Batman 66?
I have. I started with the first 4, and then I stopped picking up my comics, much to my comic shop owners,
frustration,
displeasure.
Yeah. There you go.
It's Christmas time.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I am enjoying it. It's very well written, and it honors that tradition very, very closely.
It honors it very closely without going too far into what went wrong, and at the same time realizing you've also got to deal with a modern audience. So I like that they're walking that line nicely, and that the success of it is now bringing out Wonder Woman 77.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That wave of nostalgia is finally hitting. I did also pick up The Adventures of Adam West, which was interesting. I didn't follow it through more than the first issue, but I love that they're expanding the comic universe to embrace the 1966 era Batman. They kind of pushed it to the wayside after the dark and gritty period started in '89, or as far back as The Dark Knight Returns. But certainly we haven't even gotten back to the 1970s incarnation of Batman, which was kind of a cross between the camp and the really dark Batman.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that heroes can be brave and the bold type, positive and colorful without being broody, but still be well written and produced.
Yeah. Cliff Robertson. I mean, we've been talking about him on and off here throughout the whole thing, and how he got the part. He asked for it. He had been on the set a few months before, loved what he saw, loved what was going on, and he said, I really want to get in on this. So a few months later, they come up with Shame.
Well, I think it would be a natural thing for them to want to do a Western-themed show.
Right.
It's cheap relatively because the sets are still there, and there's still significant interest in it.
Yes.
Plus, it's visually striking to do it, as we've seen in these 2 episodes. And it was done well enough that they brought him back for season 3.
Right. One of the few 2-parters, too, of season 3.
Yeah, maybe that was something that they had planned before they made that transition to cut things in half.
Maybe. Yeah.
But it was definitely worth it. You didn't see Ma Parker coming back for a second appearance.
Well, I don't think anybody was going to be asking Ma Parker back.
No. It did set a good precedent, and it set a bad precedent in that we're starting to see this trend toward, as you said, the celebrity appearances. And one of the things that I took away from our last discussion about Batman was that people who want to celebrate Batman don't want to drag on it. They don't want to tune into a show and hear it being torn apart.
Yeah.
And the thing about Batman was people don't realize how hard it is to construct the kind of show that Batman became. At its basic level, it's just Adam West and Burt Ward mugging for the camera and doing shticky stuff. But it's very hard to do. You can get an Oscar-winning actress into a role on Batman, and she doesn't have the chops to do it. But from her perspective, once you have an episode like Shame that comes out, and you have somebody who is so good, like Cliff Robertson, you're going to have other actors who are going to follow up and want to do the same thing for prominence or whatever, and they're just not going to be good at it.
Yeah.
So now that we have Shame that establishes it can be done, you have a bunch of actors who are going to follow him who are going to be more Ma Parker than Shame.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with the 3rd season coming along.
Yeah. So I didn't want some of the feedback that I got from my last appearance on here was, I really didn't want to hear guys ragging on Batman. Well, it's such a good show that, every great show has crappy episodes.
Sure.
We all love Star Trek, but Star Trek has got some of the stinkiest hours of television ever produced. In this case, it shows the proof of concept. It can be done, whereas we need to celebrate what sucks too, so we know what they did right.
Right.
That made it so special.
Well, we need to celebrate what sucks. And here's the thing, you know, when it comes to this show, when it comes to, you know, I also do, you know, $6 Million Man on Cyborgs, the Bionic Podcast and such. There's what people remember from Batman. There's what people remember from $6 Million Man. People look at $6 Million Man, they go, Lee Majors, the wooden actor. Lee Majors was a wooden actor in, and I'll give you this, yes, in the 4th and 5th season when he was fed up with the role, when he wanted out. But if you look at some of those early episodes with the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd where, you know, he was given quality scripts, when they knew his strengths, it's like, don't give him a lot of dialogue. Let everybody else talk around him and let him, but when he would react and when he would just say with a word or something, you're like, damn, you know, he just put you down. He just, you know, he just shut you down. It's the same thing with Adam West. You know, everybody remembers Robin, old chum. Like, he was almost like William Shatner. And it's like, you look at the first season episodes and you see Batman burst in, and even if it could be the silliest line, Adam West said it with such sincerity that you were willing to believe it. That was Batman. And the thing is, everybody just hangs on what was wrong with Batman. And yes, that's part of also what this whole thing is to look at where did Batman go wrong. But we're about halfway into the 2nd season, and we're starting to see the wheels come off, but we're starting to see it. And there's still some stuff coming up that is going to be absolutely brilliant before we get to the complete crash at the end. And frankly, the complete crash are those final 6 episodes of the 3rd season when just everybody gave up and didn't even try anymore. But there's a lot there to love, and I get it too. I understand that. But, you know, as a fellow podcaster of mine, Thomas DJ over at Better in the Dark says, it's one thing to love your characters. It's another thing to love your characters. And sometimes you got to let go and say, yeah, this isn't working.
One of the things that draws me to these kind of programs is, it struck me when you and I had a discussion about me coming on the $6 Million Man podcast, is that I loved the show. And I thought, you know, that's a great opportunity because I love the show. And then I thought about it for 10 minutes and I realized I don't remember a whole lot about the $6 Million Man. But that's the truth about a lot of this. It's nostalgia. We re-engage these shows based on how they made us feel, and not necessarily the show themselves, but what we were doing as kids at that time. After the 30 minutes of programming, we took something from Batman or the $6 Million Man and made it part of our lives. We played in the sandbox with action figures, or we put on a tacky jumpsuit and ran around making noises for hours on end in the summer. And that's what became brilliant about that stuff. So when we come back to it 30, 40 years later, we sit down and we actually dissect the episodes. A lot of people who are listening through our words are thinking, that's not how I remember it. I remember that was just sheer, pure 99.9% brilliant.
Right.
And it's good to look at stuff from the perspective of, you know, I'm 30 years older now, and it still has that charm. What about this show makes it memorable on an emotional level? If not, you know, I remember Sasquatch, I remember The Probe, I remember Jamie Summers crossovers, and I remember really tacky suits, but I remember feeling really, really good about it. What about that experience stays with me about Batman? And I think it's us being able to just turn our brains off, and all the stuff that we talked about over the last hour doesn't mean anything, because there's Batman, there's Robin running down a western street taking on a bad guy. But we know it's safe. We know that at the end of the half hour, they're going to be fine, and I'm going to go out in the backyard, find my best friend, and we're going to argue about who's going to play Batman, who's going to play Robin.
Right.
Which, you know, 30 years later, that statement takes on a completely different context. But yeah, I love the fact that these shows, particularly episodes like Shame, set that template for the kind of quality entertainment that is going to stick with us, not just for a couple of years, but decades, and we're going to pass it on to our kids. One of my favorite things right now is it reflects what Andy went through in this episode. My son Colin is 12 years old. His favorite television network is MeTV.
Okay.
And his DVR segment is set up to record Adam 12, Chips, and Batman. He loves Law and Order. He's very black and white about things that are right and wrong. He loves Batman. So it's great for me to be 44-ish dad sitting on the couch next to my 12-year-old son who's just giggling hysterically at this, but he's seeing a completely different show than I'm seeing. And it's just that experience. So I get to look backwards through time 30 years to when I would come home from school and watch Batman and react exactly the same way. And he reminds me why this show was awesome on an emotional level. Well, here we are dissecting it intellectually.
Yeah, well, you know, it wouldn't be much of a podcast if we just sat there and turned our brains off too, and just, you know, I mean, and we do that. I mean, there are things. There are very few episodes of Batman I could say, you know, I'd be fine if I never watched it again. Like, say, Marsha last week, Queen of Diamonds. But, you know, there's always something, even in this, and as I say, I loved this episode as a kid. I still like it a lot now. I see, though, with some of the flaws now as the adult, that it's not as good. I still say, though, you know, and I've said this before, you've got your first season, you've got second season episodes, but second season episodes are either weak first or better third, and there's only a handful of second season episodes. This is a solid second season episode.
Mm-hmm. It is.
By the way, now to just get back to the end game here of this, did the kid himself, Andy, actor Eric Shea, I never made the connection until I did the research now. He's the kid who is, you know, part of the group of survivors in the Poseidon Adventure.
I did not know that.
I didn't
of
know
course,
it either.
I don't remember seeing the Poseidon Adventure, so...
Really? Oh, you have to see yourself the Poseidon Adventure.
The Poseidon Adventure had Shelley Winters in it, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
I don't see that high on my Netflix queue right now, then.
Yes,
I take that back. That was bad of me to say. That was a joke callback that went a little bit too far. But... No, I remember seeing the Poseidon Adventure as a kid, and it didn't stay with me. It was one of those Irwin Allen disaster flicks that, you know, you eat like popcorn, and who remembers a great bag of popcorn?
No, I don't. I was going to say no. It's actually one of those movies that every couple of years, my wife and I, because we both remember it as kids, we share together and we watch. I still remember as a kid my Mad Magazine spoof of the Poseidon Adventure, and the kid and the way they made his ears even larger in, you know, and the goofy look on his face and such. But it was just, you know, when I saw that, I was like, all right, there's another connection to my childhood as well, the Poseidon Adventure and such with this kid.
Yeah, child actors in the 60s were interesting. They were very, I mean, I guess kids today have to be little adults.
Right.
But watching this kid's performance, he was a kid, and he was clearly professional, but
yeah,
they allowed him to be mush-mouthy and just be into himself and stuff, which was really cool.
Yeah. Was there a bat device that stood out to you?
I guess I have to go back to the Bat Cycle remote control that was, you know, Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
How do we get out of this plot predicament? Well, let's just have the Bat Cycle follow us through the city without anybody on it.
And trivia question. Do you remember where Laughing Leo's car lot was located?
Oh, no, I don't.
Yeah. I got to wonder, because when Joel puts these questions together for the you know, the Bat book, some of them, you know, have a significance, and I'm wondering if there was a significance here, the corner of Surf Avenue and 20th Street, or if that's just obscure trivia.
That doesn't ring a bell at all.
Yeah. I'm going to chalk that one up to obscure trivia rather than having any real significance, as some of the others do. Okay, so it's the end of the episode. You're Robin the Boy Wonder. You've watched this now. You're a big Western fan. You turn to Batman and you exclaim, holy what? How do you sum up this episode?
Flashing back to the cliffhanger, Robin, who's stuck to the ground as an army of syphilitic cows or cheap, whatever the chief cattle is running over him. The only word I would think of would be, holy cowpoke, Batman.
Did it hold up to your childhood? Because you said as a kid you loved this episode. I loved this. Did it hold up?
Yeah, because they weren't... What they were doing is timeless. They were trying to replicate something from a different era.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as a television Western of the time, yeah, it holds up. I mean, there's a level of detached reality here that you accept. I mean, there's certainly the disc jockey doesn't hold up very well, and it's really annoying. The used car salesman is kind of dated and annoying. But in terms of the Western tropes, I think it's a loving tribute to that genre, and it holds up really well.
I still can say holy get up, Batman, and because to me that's what really stood out to me is just Shame's whole outfit, which really in 70s television and watching my VHS copies off whether it was Channel 11 or Family Channel or wherever it was, TV Land at the time, it's all washed out and it never really popped the way it does now with the Blu-ray, and you're like, wow, he really is wearing a quite a colorful outfit. But I'll say that as well in terms of, after talking to you today about this episode, my first impression was I still liked it, but it didn't hold up as much. But now as we go over the elements and such, yeah, I'm still looking forward to seeing him come back again soon, though, for the third season episode.
Yeah, those were really good. I enjoyed the plot that they came up with for that one, too. And I think Shame is not a great character, but Cliff Robertson as Shame is a great combination. It's a great thing.
Yeah, no, that I agree with you there. It's like on paper it doesn't really come across as the strongest, but kind of like Egghead. Cliff Robertson makes it work, like Vincent Price makes Egghead work.
Yeah, and it gets to the whole point of the Batman formula of what is comedy, what works in terms of the setup and the structure. If you play things exactly straight, if there's no hint of irony or parody, then it works. And Cliff Robertson is playing the straight but completely badly written B-Western character. And he's doing it as a trained actor. And Adam West is an excellent actor. Burt Ward not so much, but that's a different thing. But when you have Burgess Meredith and Cesar Romero and Vincent Price doing holding that formula together, you get great television.
Yeah, and doing it in a way with Cliff Robertson's case without really playing into the absurdity of the character too much. I mean, he has his moments, but not to the extent of, like I say, like a Victor Buono. With this is so absurd, I'm just going to be completely off the wall silly, and it takes you out of it altogether.
Yeah.
So as we come to the end of this episode, Jay, how do people, and I know you've said it before, but just for any new listeners here, because we've actually gotten, especially since the release of the DVD sets, we've had actually quite a bump in downloads and such here. How can people, follow you and what's going on with HG World and your other writing projects?
Oh, I'm really excited because I write and I follow this audio drama series called Hidden Harbor Mysteries. And
Yes.
Hidden Harbor Mysteries.
I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. It's something that I'm really excited about because it's got a fantastic cast of voice actors and fantastic production values. It takes us back to the era of 1930s pulp serials. So a lot of the stuff that influenced Batman is packed into this 15-minute cliffhanger action adventure series that has a lot to owe to The Shadow and Green Hornet, all those great put on a mask and bust some heads kind of crime fighting series of that period. The series will wrap up with its 15th episode. Actually, as of when this airs, all 15 episodes will be available to download free of charge from hiddenharbormysteries.com or lincolnaudio.com. I highly recommend it, not because I wrote it, but because I've got a fantastic cast of characters, and it's a great, fun ride. But if you're into zombies, you can listen to my other show, HG World, which won a Parsec Award in 2011 for the best audio drama, and was a finalist in 2013 for The Diary of Jill Woodbine, which is a Podio novel that is a spin-off of the series. All of this stuff is free. There's hours of content. It's very well produced by my friends and associates. I recommend checking it out at least. And that's pretty much where you can find me. If you want to check out my books, I'm on Amazon.com. The Diary of Jill Woodbine is one of my books. Rise of the Monkey Lord, a comedy about gamers and living in an alternate reality. That's there. You can find me on Goodreads or on Facebook.
I'm a complete doofus, though, for forgetting Hidden Harbor, especially considering I'm contributing a voice to it.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm really looking forward to. The DVD special features of Hidden Harbor Mysteries will feature John as a Greg Bell type historian who goes back to tell us how the show was produced back in the 1930s. Because the conceit of Hidden Harbor is that we produced it like it was being done in the 1930s. And the story tries to project what the world would be like in the 1940s. And Chris Chrisman is the guy who knows all the behind-the-scenes politics of the writer and the producer, trying to butt heads over the storyline and such. So I'm really looking forward to what John does with it.
I'm looking forward to hearing how it all comes out in the end with the mix. Well, folks, that's going to do it then for this episode of the Batcave Podcast. Tune in 2 weeks' time.
Next week, Burgess Meredith with a new penguin ploy.
It's a new year. It's still, though, some great old villains because the waddling master of mayhem, the Penguin, is back in Gotham City, and so is Billy Flynn of GeekRadioDaily.com. So stay tuned, citizens, and take a listen for that. Until next time, Jay, thanks so much for being part of this.
Thanks for having me, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Folks, take care, chums. Have a great New Year's, and stay safe. Thanks for listening, chums. I don't have a bat phone, but you can contact the Batcave Podcast through its Facebook page, Twitter, email at thebatcavepodcast@gmail.com, or by phone at 888-866-9010. Subscribe to the podcast via Libsyn.com, that's LIBSYN.com, or through iTunes. The Batcave Podcast is part of a series of pop culture podcasts from the Chronic Rift Network. Find them at chronicrift.com. So until next time, citizens, same bat time, same Batcave Podcast.
In a few minutes, the authorities will transport you all to the calaboose.
Well, I guess it's goodbye for 99 years to life.
The law is the law.
This little tyke insisted on coming in.
Andy, what are you doing here?
I've been yelling and screaming all over Gotham City for Shame to come back. When I heard that he was in here, I just reported myself to the lost little boy.
Why'd you do that?
Because this dirty old man stole my radio. And if Mom ever found out about it, she'd wail the tar out of me. Give me back my radio, Shame, or you'll be in big trouble with my mother.
Here. Send me a bill for the batteries. Batman will know my address.
Well, what are you going to do now, Andy? You're not really a lost little boy.
I was for a while, Batman, but you made me find myself. I'm going straight to the department store and trade in this Western outfit for a Batman costume. I don't want to be a cowboy anymore. I want to be a hero like you, Cape Crime Fighter.
Being a hero or a crime fighter is not what counts the most, Andy. It's growing up to be a good citizen. And if that's what you meant, it's the highest possible compliment you could pay me. Good grief.